What is up, Beyond the Gates fans? I am late here to talk about Thursday and Friday's episodes of Beyond the Gates because I've been moving. But also, I wasn't in a hurry to record this because apparently we're going into another week where the show is not having new episodes, which is very strange. But it's what CBS keeps deciding during holiday weeks. I don't know if I agree, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Last time they did this, I was worried, but they came back to some pretty strong ratings, so maybe they will again. We are ending on a high note because I really feel like this past week's episodes of Beyond the Gates was the best week in quite a while. With Chelsea being kidnapped, I think the stakes have been raised, and it's also brought out a lot of good things for a lot of other characters. So let's get into these past two episodes. We will start with Chelsea and Allison. It was the main drama where Allison had kidnapped Chelsea, kept her chained to the bed. And on Thursday's episode, when Allison awakes Chelsea with a feather, she is in a wedding dress asking Chelsea to marry her. And of course, Chelsea says no, but Allison is not going to take no for an answer in the rest of these scenes for the next two episodes. First of all, Allison revealed that she and Craig were pretending and not really married and that he was an escort, so Chelsea, finding out all of Allison's planning and how much planning actually went into this, I feel like as the week went on, Chelsea continued to find out how big of a psycho Allison really is. Just more and more each episode, Allison's looking more and more like a psycho. So Chelsea's saying she's not going to get married because there's no witnesses anyway. It's not going to be legal. But Allison says, in the eyes of God, they will be married. So eventually, Chelsea starts going through with all of this, and Allison starts her weirdo wedding. Chelsea's just trying to placate Allison, I think. She's playing along with it. She plays along with the vows, promising to treat Allison as well as Allison treats her. And she vowed to be the wife that Allison deserves. Now, in Friday's episode, the wedding keeps going. Allison has wedding rings for them. She wants to kiss the bride. Chelsea isn't really ready for that at first, but like I said, Allison's not doing a very good job of taking no for an answer, so she eventually gets a little kiss from Chelsea, and then Allison wants to start their wedding night. She wants to consummate the wedding, the marriage. And she even had a wedding cake for Chelsea, which is a good detail because she had to cut the cake with a knife and feed Chelsea the cake. But as the wedding night comes, of course, Chelsea doesn't want to make love to Allison after all of this psychoness, after this weirdo wedding. And so Chelsea goes off and Allison says she doesn't love her, and Allison is not happy to hear this. Chelsea wants to put an end to this, so Allison grabs the knife from the wedding cake, saying, okay, if you don't love me, well, if I can't have you, no one can. And that is our big Friday cliffhanger for what will be over a week before we get back to this psychotic story of Allison. I've enjoyed it quite a bit. I think they've done a really good job this past week of making Allison the psycho that she is. I do usually like a good psycho on a soap opera as long as the soap opera doesn't have too many psychos. And, this show already does have Leslie, who's pretty crazy, but she hasn't quite gone off the deep end like Allison yet. So it's still been very enjoyable. Now, some of the other story threads to go along with this. One of my favorite parts of Thursday's episode was when Nicole gets papers from Ted that Ted is stalling the divorce to make sure their assets are split 50-50. And this is happening while Bill is back to comfort Danny. And that's when Nicole realizes that Bill is representing Ted, and Bill has this great cat that ate the canary face going on. I thought that was great. This week has been very good for the Bill character as well. Bill has been finding out a ton of information that he didn't realize when it came to his daughter, Chelsea. But also, I feel like both he and the Duprees are feeling closer again. Like, it's starting to show how Bill was when he actually was Anita and Vernon's son-in-law. And I feel like in Thursday's episode, Bill wanted to make the Duprees happy again by confronting Leslie, because Leslie keeps showing up at the Duprees wanting to move in across the street. Leslie got the bad news on Thursday from Vanessa that the family that lives across the street wants to stay there for at least 90 days until they find a new place. So she wasn't happy about that. But then Bill showed up to confront Leslie and deliver a message to stay away from the Duprees forever. None of them want her in the neighborhood. Of course, Leslie's not going to just kowtow and fall back from Bill. She is ready to fight back against Bill. But Bill has his threats ready for her. He says that he will find a way to keep her out of the gates permanently, even if she doesn't stay away on her own. Knowing Bill, that's quite the threat. We saw how Bill took care of Kenny, so will Bill go that far to take care of Leslie? That remains to be seen, but I enjoyed Bill and Leslie's scenes per usual. Also on Thursday is when Eva talked to Ted about getting Leslie not to buy the house by the Duprees, and thinks Ted can convince Leslie, and thinks that if Ted can get Leslie to not move in front of Anita and Vernon, then Nicole would be grateful. Because Eva's worried that her mother's going to burn through all this money that she's getting from the trust, even though Leslie keeps saying that she's going to get paid every 6 months from the trust. Eva isn't really trusting her mother with all the money. Well, in Friday's episode, Ted's big idea was a head scratcher. And the character of Ted's been leaving me scratching my head with the whole wanting Nicole back situation for a long time. But Ted's big idea was to visit Leslie, tell Leslie he has a better house for her to live in. His own house. He's talking about how Nicole is divorcing him. And first of all, when Leslie found out that Nicole was divorcing Ted, she was so happy, giving a won't he do it. He was just... yeah, she was delighted, and I thought Leslie was pretty hilarious in those scenes. But Ted was being his usual dumb self, acting like he wants to make sure Nicole doesn't get the house in their divorce, so he's going to kick Nicole out, and then Leslie can have it. He's acting like he's just going to give Leslie his house. And well, I think this was Ted just lying to try and get Leslie to back off from buying the house in front of the Duprees. It's going to blow up in his face where Nicole is concerned, especially because by the end of Friday's episode, Leslie just waltzes into Nicole's house, acting like it's already hers, telling Nicole she's moving out and that Leslie's moving in, and reveals to Nicole that Ted is going to give her the house. So, yes, Ted's big idea will, of course, blow back into his face where Nicole is concerned. And, yeah, I don't think Ted's ever going to win Nicole back at this rate, and nor do I think he should. The only other big thing continued to be Jacob and Kat working together to try and find Chelsea. They got some intel on another house that Allison might be keeping Chelsea in, but it turned out to be the wrong house. They did end up finding the obsessive journals that Allison had written about Chelsea. She had been obsessed with Chelsea for years, so they figured that out. And then on Friday's episode, where Kat continues to become more and more worried about Chelsea, thinking they're running out of time, Jacob comforts a crying Kat. And that just goes back to my questions of, are Jacob and Kat sharing all these scenes together because the show is thinking about going there with them. They are testing the waters to see if Jacob and Kat have chemistry. Will Kat eventually come between Jacob and Naomi? I don't know how I feel about that still, but the show keeps going there for a reason. I have to think that. Anyway, Madison eventually showed up telling them about how Allison had hurt herself in the past, so that just makes Kat even more worried about Chelsea. And she should be, because like I said, Friday's episode ended with Allison grabbing a knife and bringing it towards Chelsea. That was all the main stuff. We had some Martin and Nicole scenes on Friday. They talked about Martin's secret. They kind of worked things out between mother and son. Tomas was back on Friday, which was not great. I have not missed Tomas. He had been gone for several episodes. Not a character I ever have anything positive to say about because I don't like the acting for the character, and Tomas has no chemistry with Eva and Kat. But in those scenes on Friday, Tomas was like flirting with Eva here and there, and I'm glad Eva did not bite a single time on any of Tomas's flirting. I don't know what they have planned for that triangle, but to me, it is still a no-go both ways. Neither woman with Tomas works for me. Anyway, since the show won't be on for a week, I will not be back to talk about it for a week, but I do think the past week of Beyond the Gates episodes were great. It was a very entertaining week of the soap, the best week in a while. Sucks that they're taking a week off, but I hope it's for the best. I questioned it last time, but they did come back to stronger ratings, so maybe next week when Beyond the Gates comes back, the ratings will be strong, or so we all need to hope.